Today, I'm reacting to one of Hajime no Ippo's best fights. A 6-round slugfest between Ippo Makunouchi and Sawamura the Deathblow Dragon that features some interesting techniques and powerful strikes. Whenever I post an anime reaction video, someone suggests this Hajime no Ippo in the comments, and after watching this fight, I can see why. And by the way, check the collar, unbuttoned, because some of you think I'm a little bit uptight.
Ever since I can remember, I've been popping my collar.
Hajime no Ippo is a Japanese boxing-themed manga series written and illustrated by George Morikawa. Its anime adaptation is arguably one of the best sports anime ever produced, presenting the story, character, and comedy elements in brilliant animation. But above all, the action sequences are especially standout in the anime adaptation, brimming with visceral energy as the opponents go toe-to-toe in the boxing ring. This fight is no exception. But at first, it doesn't seem that Sawamura is taking it seriously. This is Makunouchi Ippo's 5th title defense after he has been crowned Japanese featherweight champion, and needless to say, he's not interested in playing games. Ippo delivers a deep body blow followed by a vicious right hand in order to wake Sawamura up. Judging by the placement of the body shot, there is potential that Ippo's punch connected with Sawamura's liver. This large meaty organ sits on the right side of the belly, weighs about 3 pounds, and is susceptible to a well-placed punch. It is tasked with filtering the blood from the digestive tract before passing it to the rest of the body. It detoxifies chemicals, metabolizes drugs, and makes various proteins. But despite its vital function, it is only partially protected by the rib cage, its bottom portion peeking out beneath our lowest ribs. An effective punch will be directed upwards and into the body to get under the bottom rib, somewhere between an uppercut and a hook. Hit it hard enough, and your opponent will experience extreme pain as nerve signals rush up their spinal cord to the part of the brain that controls involuntary actions. You know, breathing, heartbeat, and blood vessel dilation.
He's got a beautiful one where he steps in and just and rips that left hook to the liver, and your body just goes, it just shuts down.
In an instant, their heart rate slows down, their blood pressure drops, and often they will drop to the canvas, but not for lack of toughness.
Your whole body just seizes up.
The body recoils as it attempts to even out low blood pressure. But it doesn't look like Sawamura has any time to feel any of these symptoms. Bam! A punishing right to Sawamura's zygomatic bone, snapping his head quickly to the right with enough force to create a contra-coup mechanism so prevalent in traumatic head injuries. A blow to the head jostles the brain within the skull, sending it flying into the interior walls of the skull, first at the side of the initial impact, the coup, and then somewhere opposite the initial impact, the contra-coup. Sawamura, kneeling on the canvas, rethinking his whole life, is a reminder not to joke around in a title fight versus Ippo Makunouchi. I think he got the message. And now we're off to the races. Sawamura's bullet-style technique enables him to throw powerful jabs extremely quickly. I love this little X-ray effect. Hajime no Ippo definitely scores bonus points for quickly demonstrating the anatomy of a lightning-quick jab. As you can see, Sawamura initiates rotational force from his shoulder while keeping his fist and arm in a slightly extended upright guard position, giving his fist less distance to travel.
Don't let me hit your hand. Just move it out the way. Now notice the speed of the first two. That's 1, 2. Okay, now here's the third one. Don't let me hit it. Ready? Yeah.
How the hell?
Come on, man.
His arm extends quickly and his fist snaps forward as he stacks the bones of his arm in a perfectly straight line at the point of impact, from his shoulder all the way down his arm to his knuckles.
I'm going straight. I'm not telegraphing.
Okay.
Most boxers, even when you're practicing,
Right.
you do this. They gotta read your punches. So you're teaching yourself to be read.
Right.
But if you go straight from wherever.
The weight of his body is behind each blow, though he trades some power by isolating the movement to his arm without generating rotational force from his torso. Until... Though we did not see this punch connect, we can hypothesize from the trajectory of Ippo's face that Sawamura threw in some sort of right hook to mix things up. As Makunouchi was occupied avoiding the barrage of bullet punches, Sawamura decided to throw a heavier variation. And if the white flash of light is any indication of Ippo's perspective, there is reason for concern. Your occipital lobe sits in the back of the brain and is responsible for interpreting nerve signals from the eyes. If you get hit on the head at the right angle, the tissue in your occipital lobe gets shaken up and the brain cells then send out random electrical impulses, which your brain interprets as flashes of light that may seem like stars. What is traumatic brain injury for $500, Alex? That's right. If the lobe in the back of your brain is bumped following a punch to your right zygomaxillary complex, then contre coup is the culprit and concussion is a stone's throw away. But in dramatic anime fashion, Ippo is back on his feet, but he's wondering why he's staring at the canvas. Well, Ippo, I'd imagine it has something to do with the man with revolvers for hands. As a medical professional, I need to warn you that temporary memory loss may indicate a concussion has already occurred. It is common for people with the condition to report a brief period of amnesia or forgetfulness where they cannot remember what happened immediately before the injury.
I don't know, man.
What is known as retrograde amnesia. At least now, our fighters are acquainted with each other and their fight continues in full force. Until... For my boxing fans out there, does that side-to-side motion look familiar to you?
This is the Dempsey roll. It was used to topple a giant. The man who created it was Jack Dempsey.
And Jack Dempsey wasn't the only one who adopted this technique. Historically, both Jack Dempsey and Mike Tyson leveraged similar anatomical dynamics to bulldoze opponents. Dempsey deploys what he refers to as the drop step to step into punches and to put all of his weight behind a flurry of hooks.
Dempsey put all of his weight into each punch. He was essentially falling forward into his opponent and catching himself with his fist on their face.
Well, when you put it that way, I can understand this technique striking fear into the hearts of opponents. Mike Tyson's adaptation of this technique deploys a similar drop step to accumulate forward momentum. Only Tyson isn't throwing a punch with every step. As he weaves towards his opponent, he pulls his guard close to his face and tightens his core muscles. He is simultaneously shrinking the surface area on which his opponent can hit him, dodging punches, and gathering rotational momentum like a runaway freight train barreling down a mountain towards your face. Ippo's version of the Dempsey roll is like a combination of the two techniques. He gathers momentum like Tyson, then unleashes a flurry of punches like the originator of the technique. But unfortunately for Ippo, Sawamura did his homework. Ippo's forward momentum crashes against the stopping power of Sawamura's heavy left cross to the face, demonstrates the danger of a technique that relies on such a committal drop step. Ippo is bloody and has difficulty staying on his feet. More coup contra coup action here. This is as good a time as any to talk about the anatomy of a knockout. Although Ippo doesn't fall to the canvas, with each significant blow, there is mounting danger. A concussion is technically defined as a head injury that causes a disruption of neurological function. And every time this occurs, a boxer inches closer towards a KO. In fact, there are 3 grades of concussion, and grades 1 and 2 do not result in a loss of consciousness. Grade 1, mild. Symptoms that last less than 15 minutes and entail no loss of consciousness. Grade 2, moderate. Symptoms that last for longer than 15 minutes and involve no loss of consciousness. Grade 3, severe. The person loses consciousness. You ever go night-night? You ever go night-night?
What does this have to do with the fight? Are we fighting or not?
The coveted knockout blow, when a fighter actually does go lights out, is evidence of a grade 3 concussion and often occurs due to the accumulation of mild concussions sustained over the course of the fight. An article from Popular Mechanics summarizes this process perfectly. Inside the body, electrolytes, dissolved sodium, potassium, and calcium, are responsible for conducting impulses along neurons. Every time a fighter sustains a heavy blow to a nerve, potassium leaves the cell and calcium rushes in, destabilizing the electrolyte balance, while the brain does all it can to keep these levels in check. Do you see the mounting problem? The brain spends more and more energy to maintain the electrolyte balance until the damage outweighs the body's ability to repair itself, and the brain shuts down to conserve energy to fix the injured neurons at a later point. Dr. Anthony Alessi, a neurologist and ringside physician, further explains. After a brain injury, the heart must supply sufficient blood flow to the brain to repair itself. If the demand outweighs the supply, the brain then shuts down and leads to an eventual loss of consciousness. You may be surprised to learn that the boxer's feet are the first clear sign that he's reaching the KO threshold. The part of the brain responsible for motor activity is disrupted by concussion after concussion, and a fighter cannot coordinate foot movement. I repeat, a fighter cannot coordinate foot movements, let alone defend against a dangerous opponent like Sawamura. Saved by the bell. But Sawamura is enjoying himself and shows no sign of letting up. These furious uppercuts to the abdomen, delivered with enough power to lift Ippo up off the canvas, pose a serious threat for the internal organs located there. Organs such as your pancreas, liver, spleen, or bladder may be injured, and any of the injuries could cause internal bleeding. When internal bleeding is caused by blunt force trauma, the blood vessels inside the body or organ are literally torn or crushed by the sheer forces of the impact. Think squashed grapes. Sawamura is attempting to make tummy wine. Yum. Not. His strikes also put Ippo's 3 lowest ribs at risk. These are known as floating ribs since they are not directly attached to the sternum. If a blow does cause a rib fracture, the displaced bone fragment and their sharp ends would increase the likelihood of internal bleeding. For these reasons, it's particularly worrisome when a fighter is no longer able to defend themselves and the danger involved in each strike becomes much more pronounced. Typically, the organs in the abdomen would be protected to some degree by tensing of the abdominal muscle wall, which would also help to reinforce the floating ribs. It is possible to condition these muscles to a very high degree so that they can withstand a lot of punishment. In fact, this was an integral part of Muhammad Ali's game plan versus George Foreman in the famous Rumble in the Jungle.
Vicious hook. There's a run. What a tremendous and improved left jab. There's an awkward one taking Ali to the ropes.
Leading up to that fight, Ali spent an hour every morning executing a grueling abdominal routine which hardened his muscles. Then, on fight day, he let Foreman punch himself out against his iron flesh. Looks like Ippo is trying to tire out Sawamura in a different way. Didn't I just say that it's worrisome when a fighter cannot protect themselves? This looks like a whole mess of maxillofacial trauma waiting to happen. This term encompasses any injury to the face or jaws, and after a string of unprotected bullet jabs to the face, I wouldn't be surprised to find an orbital eye socket fracture or a nasal fracture. These injuries often present with bruising or skin lacerations on the face. Unfortunately, Ippo seems to be having difficulty staying unconscious. And even if he could hear me, anime protagonists aren't really known for giving up, even when they're on the verge of sustaining permanent damage. And so, Sawamura continues his quest to shatter the bones in Ippo's face. Note, to all you aspiring boxers out there, try not to take a string of left and right hooks to either side of your face, lest your trainer be forced to throw in the towel. But then, in true anime fashion, the mounting damage and pressure pushes Ippo to evolve beyond the new Dempsey roll. Behold the new Dempsey roll. This technique starts out similar to the first version of the Dempsey roll, but Ippo plants his left foot and decelerates quickly, stopping his body on a dime and forcing the overcommitted Sawamura to miss. Deceleration like this puts a lot of stress on the joints and muscles in the planting leg and in the trunk. This movement pattern isn't as overtly dangerous as a punch to the face, but decelerating quickly can easily overload the involved structures and cause injury. Obviously, Ippo has trained his body to a very high degree, but even a finely tuned athlete can be injured in sudden deceleration maneuvers. Just look at what happened with Tom Aspinall 15 seconds into his fight with Curtis Blades at UFC London 2022. And lo and behold, as Ippo walks away, he looks to be experiencing pain in his ankle or low leg and low back, which is consistent with injuries caused by deceleration forces. I wouldn't be surprised if he were experiencing pain in his knee on his planted leg as well, just as Tom Aspinall. His trainer knows he's almost to his limit. But if he wants to win, he'll have to hold out a little bit longer. This next part makes me laugh, for real. Water! Of course, the almighty panacea. Our bodies are made of it. Could it be that Makunouchi Ippo was dehydrated this whole time? Okay, maybe it was water, plus his fighting spirit. What follows is a visceral display of boxing genius. Can you say concussio cu zygomaxillary fracture? Okay, I made that one up. But judging by the way Sawamura's head snaps back and his cheek and jaw cave under the pressure of Ippo's fist, we may need to add it to the textbooks. Just remember, you heard it here first. Riding a gale force second wind, Ippo is eager to inflict as much damage on Sawamura in one round as he suffered over the previous 5. Then another variation of the Dempsey roll catches Sawamura off guard. Twice. And it's up to Ippo to seal the deal. Now, think about everything we learned so far about concussions. And take a look at Sawamura as he falls to the ground. Do you think Sawamura will be getting up? Eyes open or closed? It doesn't look like anyone's home. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe for more content like this. If you didn't, then let me know why in the comment section. And as always, that's been a word from Dr. Chris, not your everyday ortho, where we see one, do one, teach one.